Welcome, everybody. Brother Goodwin here, Prophecy in the Spotlight. Boy, if we got a show for you, you're going to want to get your family together, get your friends together, send a text to some of your friends, because today on the program, Doc is in the studio, we're going to be talking about the Great American Eclipse. This is part 2, because in 2017 was part 1, and coming up within a few weeks is the Great American Eclipse. That's going to make an X 20 miles from where I'm sitting right here. We're in Raleigh, Illinois. 20 miles as the crow flies is a town called Carbondale. And that's where I believe the X is of the two eclipses, 7 years apart. We're going to tackle this today. We're going to try to give you some good insight and some good understanding of what you need to make of this. So stay tuned. Welcome, everybody. Prophecy in the Spotlight here. I'm Brother Goodwin. This is Dr. Charles Hilton. We're glad that he's back in the studio today. We've had a couple of guests the last couple of weeks, and Doc has been down and under with some flu. Yep. And we was worried about you, Doc. I know it's not supposed to worry, but we were concerned.
I'm doing better. I'm not up on top yet, but I'm climbing.
Yeah, and boy, we're glad to have you back, and I know the audience is glad to have you back. They love Dr. Hilton here. And folks, we are viewer supported. Want to get that out there right now before we get into this, because once we get into this, there's no stopping. We're viewer supported, and we're within, I think, two or three weeks from the bill being due for the next quarter. And we need your help. If you can write a check or make a donation over the phone or however you do it, we could use a little bump here to get us over the top here.
Amen.
Appreciate everyone that does, and we got people to send checks for. Doc, some of them.
It's amazing, isn't it?
I can't believe it.
We started with nothing, and we stayed almost with nothing, but we're able to do it.
Yeah.
I just kind of like living by faith.
This June will be 4 years we've been on here.
Wow.
Here on CTN, and I don't know how many years we've been on VTN, but VTN as well in the Arkansas area. And we're on the radio, and we got some more things we'll be telling you about that are coming up that may be opportunities for us. And so if you can help us, do so. We could do, because we're coming up on the deadline here within a couple of weeks, and appreciate it very much. Doc, we're going to talk about the Great Eclipse, and you got a bunch of stuff. You got some slides for us. We're going to get to that. But let me read a verse in Genesis. That's where it all begins, right?
That's it.
Genesis 1:14, and God said, "Let there be lights," plural, lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. About 4 things he mentions there. You can tell the days by the sun rising every day. Or actually in Israel is when the sun set, was when the next day began. You can follow the years through this. The moon gives you the month, the lunar cycles for a month. But the first thing he said was signs. And one sign in particular is the sign of the star that the wise men followed.
Sure.
You bring that out in your Christmas DVDs that we do and CDs. The fact that star or planets, whatever it was put in motion.
It had to be something very unique that caught their attention in the heaven.
And it was set in motion
on day number
4,000
of
years
creation.
ago, before it happened, when the wise men saw it.
Nothing takes God by surprise. It's all planned out.
So if these eclipses have a meaning for us, and that's a big if they have a meaning for us.
And they may have some meaning, but maybe not as much as some people would put into it.
So whatever, if it was placed in motion right here
on that day,
on the 4th day,
knowing when everything in the heavenly bodies in their orbits would be where they would be at any given time to do these things.
Now, let me say this too, Doc. I think something happened, maybe even at the fall of man something happened to the seasons, I don't know. But definitely at the flood, it's possible the earth tilted.
On this side of the flood, things are different.
So God had to even know in his foreknowledge that the earth was going to tilt and that was going to readjust everything. But God knew that. And God set everything in motion just as it had to be.
Yes, indeed.
So let's look at this. I'm just going to spend 5 minutes, Doc, and we're going to get your slides going. But let me throw this out to the folks here. The first eclipse was in 2017 in August. It was the Hebrew year on the Hebrew calendar, 5777, which is interesting.
Interesting.
And now, because the Jews mess with their calendar, these
not
numbers ain't right.
But in a way.
But even in spite of that, the fact that it was 777 is interesting. Right. This year is 5784, 7 years later, and the eclipse is scheduled to happen the 8th of April, which just so happens to be the first of Nisan.
Yes, interesting.
On the spring Passover month, the first of the month, of the month Nisan. That's interesting. And so I want to share a little bit here. The viewers will know that I believe America is in the Bible. I believe Revelation 18. I can't be 100% sure of this, but when I read Revelation 18, and I'm going to read just a couple verses here, I don't see anybody but America here. I believe Revelation 18 is talking about the system that's run from
and it's located in America.
It's a system.
Yes, it is a system.
In my Mystery of the Jubilee book, and I didn't ask her to put a picture up, but my Mystery of the Jubilee book, I have a chapter called The Mystery of Three Babylons, because there's literal, figurative, and prophetic Babylon. Literal Babylon's over there in the Middle East. A bunch of stones. I mean, it's just rubble.
They're rebuilding it.
But it's nothing.
Nothing like it once was, but it's still there.
But if it's got to be the Babylon of Revelation 18, we can unpack our bags because we got a long way to go.
But I do think it is a part of that because there is a physical judgment here in what you're getting ready to read. And that has to be Babylon because it is built over the tar pits. But that would be for another discussion.
And of course there is, I mean, a lot's going to happen over there too.
Oh, yes.
So,
absolutely.
But there's a figurative Babylon and then there's prophetic Babylon.
Well, figurative Babylon is covers a lot of different aspects.
Yeah, and really Babylon, it's a system.
Yeah. And the reason we call it that is because that system was developed in the days of Babel under Nimrod and that programming.
Yeah, there's a religious part of it.
Yes.
There's a political part of it.
It's a globalism.
Yeah, there's symbolism that goes hand in hand there. But in Revelation 17 is the fall of the religious Babylon.
Yes.
And which we believe is the Roman Church. Revelation 18 shows the fall of another Babylon.
A commercial.
It's almost confusing if you're not paying attention.
A commercial Babylon.
Yeah, and I call it political Babylon, which includes the commercial,
all three of them are in those 17 and 18.
And he says here, I saw another angel come down from heaven having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, is fallen. Now you got to use your thinking here. If this was in the next few years, or even this year or next year.
It seems we're on the cusp of that.
Who would this be that he's talking about? This great Babylon.
In order for this system to move to prophetic situation into Europe, what you're talking about has got to happen.
And has become the habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird.
Wow.
Bible says down here, come out from among her, my people. And over here, verse 11, and the merchant, when they see the smoke rising from Babylon, the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, and no man buyeth the merchandise anymore. Down here in verse 15, the merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing.
Yep.
Now,
all their investments are gone.
Who is it in the last 100 years that's made the world rich? It's America.
Yeah.
I believe the mystery...
Especially since World War II.
Yeah. I believe Babylon is a system. And I believe it started in Europe, and I believe America's part of Europe. We're the lion's
We're an
cub.
extension of it.
Yeah, we came out of
I'm
Europe.
not so sure we've not been out from under their thumb to begin with.
Yeah, and I think we run the whole system. I think we protect the whole world. Look at NATO.
At least,
who spends all the money on NATO?
At least
we do.
we are presented as the ones that run it. Yeah.
So the only reason I wanted to bring this out because these eclipses here that we're talking about, there's been 8 of them now in America since America was founded in 1776. And this is interesting. The first eclipse, I'm talking about a total eclipse now, not just a partial eclipse. There's been 8 total eclipses so far since America was founded.
Since America was founded.
And I'm talking about eclipses that were in America, visible from America. 8 of them. The last one was 2017.
Yes.
That was number 8. But the first one was 1778, right in the middle of the Revolutionary War that brought America
started
into
this country.
Yeah. And so, in other words, if this is showing us of a judgment to come, then I think what he's saying is it's kind of like the judgment of the system of Babylon.
Yeah.
And it would fit here. And because we started in 1776, so you got one there, the American Revolution. There's actually 2 of them. There was one in 1778. Well, let me say that again. There's 1778 is the first one. 1780, near the end of the war. I think 83 was the end of the Revolutionary War. 1780 was the second great eclipse over America, a total eclipse. The third one, the Civil War, 1860. I mean, just at the beginning of the Civil War.
I've got a map of that. It'll be shown here in a little bit. Yes.
And then we've got the Vietnam War. There's a couple others here. It seems like all these eclipses.
Every one of them's had a war with.
Yeah.
And it's pretty obvious we're involved in war right now.
And you're probably going to hit on that, so we'll just move from that. So here's what I wanted to say here. I believe America is the seed of the beast. And I believe we're part of Europe, and we'll definitely at the rapture we'll all be one system then. I believe that these eclipses, they appear to be showing us something.
It's very possible. Yes. I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to take my stand on it for my life.
but I mean, Revelation 1:14, God set these things in their places. And you pointed out in the update we did what that word set meant.
We'll cover that again in a moment.
And all these having to do with America and war.
Yes.
And America being the seed of this beast. And look at us now. America is corrupt. It's wicked. It's vile. And I mean, my goodness, they're pushing transgender and mutilating little kids' bodies.
It's unreal. And our president illustriously last night looked right at the Supreme Court and said, we're going to, we just got to overrule you on this abortion issue and all that stuff. Hey, we're in great trouble with God.
Yeah, overrule the Supreme Court. That sounds good, huh? So here's the thing. The 9th eclipse is coming up in just a few weeks here. By the time this airs, it'll be real close. It's the 8th of April. 9 is symbolic of judgment.
Yes.
8's new beginnings. 9 is judgment. It's almost like God has said, "That's it. You guys are toast. You're done. I'm bringing judgment upon your nation."
And of course, everybody talks about that X. I don't know if you're going to talk about it there, but it falls right over Carbondale, Illinois. And what people don't realize is Carbondale is in the center of what is called Little Egypt.
Yeah.
Southern Illinois is called Little Egypt.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's almost like God said.
You got Cairo just down the way.
You got Cairo, you got Haran, you got all kinds of names.
Egyptian places.
You even have the lake, you even have Little Egypt Lake.
Yeah. And that leads us to what that seems to be symbolic of is Joseph in Egypt and the 7 years of plenty and then the 7 years of famine.
And it's pretty obvious we've had some plenties, but we're certainly
under Trump we were the richest we've ever been in the history of America.
But we're approaching the X, Dan, is the 22nd letter in the Hebrew alphabet, Taw. It looks like an X. And it originally in their language meant you put an X at the end of the road. You're getting ready to plow your field, and you put an X, and that's when you get to the end of the road.
Yeah. Doc, that leads us to the fact that it's possible that there's going to be famine, because that's what happened in Egypt.
We're
in
already
Joseph's
seeing
day.
the precursors of all of that.
The famine starts in God's judgment and death. And that could be what this is about. And this could lead us right into the tribulation.
Could be leading right into the tribulation. I'm not saying this is when the rapture will take place, but it'd be all right if it took place right now.
Yeah. Now let me give one verse, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, Doc. And hopefully I didn't touch on too much of yours, but I think I might have a little bit there. This verse came to my mind yesterday, and I can't get it out of my head, Doc. You know how everybody's wanting to rush to, I mean, there are going to be highways full of people watching this thing.
There's going to be, you couldn't rent a motel room around here.
This verse came to mind, Doc. Men love darkness because their deeds are evil.
Isn't that good?
I mean, you can go out tonight at midnight and see what you're going to see in that eclipse.
Yeah.
It's the same dark. Why the excitement about dark? And I realize it's a one-time event.
Because
people want to see it.
Turning the sunlight off.
Yeah, they're turning the sun off.
And the sun is representative of the S-O-N.
Wicked men come out in the darkness. Now, I'm not saying everybody that goes and watches this. But,
No.
But there's something there.
Yeah.
There's also some.
It's that old human nature.
Yeah. So, Doc, let me turn this over to you. And I know you got some slides.
We've got some slides, and if she can find slide number 1, we'll get it started here. I've got 8 of them all together, and I just want to share some thoughts with you. That's not number 1 there. But anyway.
But that's the flat earth, right?
Well, I guess it's flat on the screen up there. Can you find the first one and put it up there on the eclipse? Well, you need to understand that as this takes place, it's going to cover just a little over 3 hours from the time it enters into Texas and makes its way out of Maine into Brunswick. And really, the timing of this one as it passes over the X is not very many minutes different than when the one did 7 years ago. And so in it, there's a path that's about 40 miles wide, some will call it 100, but it's more like a 40-mile, 50-mile wide range. It's the apex. That's the center of it. And so as that, I don't know if she can find it there or not. We got, there it is.
There it is.
And it passes through, and all the way on each side of it, in this slide you can see the amount of the eclipse that you'll be able to see. And so what we need to understand that this is a path that this year's is going to pass. And if you can find the next one, next slide, if you can find it, I want you to see that in the 21st century, that's it. In the 21st century, what you have is all of these total eclipses that's yet to take place. So look at all of the X's. So you got to be careful to say that this is the X that marks the spot, because there are all kinds of X's. I don't think we'll be here when these things happen. We probably have a new Earth and a new alignment of things. But because NASA has been able to map out the movement of you said it a while ago in verse 14, God set those in the firmament. That meant God put them in their order and in their ordinance. And so each one of these have been mapped out. You can go on to solarium.com and put in whatever date you want from your zip code, and you get a picture of the night sky 20 years in the future. Because when God put this all in order, He knew exactly where everything would move and its movements for all of these specific things. And so the next one is the one we brought up first on this earth. This is just kind of showing you, the third one there, is going to just show you these. These are the ones that's yet to come in America. And this is just on our side of the world. We're not the only people that have eclipses.
Right.
And I want people to understand that I believe if it was a major prophetic thing, it's going to take place in Israel. And I know we work awful hard, it seems like. Go to the next slide, if you would. We work really hard at trying to make America the center of prophecy. And I'm not saying what you said a while ago is not part of prophecy. but we're
Just
trying
a different area of prophecy.
we're trying to make everything in prophecy revolve around America because of American elitism, and I'm glad to be an American. But folks, prophecy revolves around Israel.
Yeah.
And now, if what you said a while ago, I agree with, this system is going to once again be centered back over in the same place geographically as it was given prophetically. I'm convinced that any prophecy given to any group of people or any entity in their geography, that will be in that geography when it is going to be fulfilled. Mm-hmm. And so what you said a while ago fits with this, putting it back in that position. But we work so hard. And notice on the slide that's there, between the last one and this one is 2,422 days. And there are people out there trying to convince you that this is a part of the tribulation. The tribulation is 2,520 days.
Yep.
But we seem to work awful hard at trying to somehow or another make our narrative be prophecy. Folks, you can't let current events interpret prophecy. Mm-hmm. They may have a part in that, but that's not what's going to interpret it.
Yeah.
And so, but we work hard on that. Go to the next slide. And this is from, I can't remember the guy's name that has the El Shaddai program.
Yeah, Mark Biltz.
Mark Biltz. And I took this, I want to make sure they get the credit for it because this is from their program. And you mentioned these a while ago, the 8 that has happened. And these are solar eclipses. But you need to understand, folks, God has always used the sun, and the Gentile world has always used the sun as their guide. Israel and the Middle East, and even Islam today uses the moon, but it's because they got their foundation out of Judaism. And so when God set up the calendar for Israel, he set it up based on the moon, not on the sun.
Yeah.
And so a solar eclipse, I don't think is as important prophetically as a lunar eclipse would be in Israel, because the sun is always in relationship to Gentile rule. Mm-hmm. And the moon or the lunar system.
And this sounds like this is a prophetic thing. If it's prophetic, it has to do with
Gentiles.
Right.
Yes. And us being, as you said a while ago, the center seat of whatever the system is it's in the world today. And you can see our system is being eroded away. The dollar is being eroded away, being attacked by all of these other systems. And the X going right over what we call Little Egypt, I can see we might be at the end of the road.
By the way, if you look at the map of the United States, that would be where the heart would be.
That would be the heart, yes.
Yeah, our heart is black.
And a lot of people don't realize, but in central and southern Illinois, we raise more soybeans and corn in an area in Illinois than any single entity anywhere in the world. It's amazing. Mm. And so the next slide, if you've got it found there, it's the same one as you said a while ago, all of these where the wars took place. Mm-hmm. And the 9th one, I believe, is probably designed for the conclusion of the matter. And yeah, that's it there. It's the conclusion of it. And but we got to be careful, Dan, not to just make blank statements.
Right.
And because some of these dates fit, it's kind of like when we had the blood moon thing.
Right.
Some of these, they said this happened in history. Well, some of them happened the year before, some of them happened the year after. Not always happened exactly on the spot.
Yeah. And
so you have to be careful. Now, I've got 2 more slides. On the next slide, I want to show you something, then I want to ask you some questions. And I know we've got a lot of folks in our world today that's trying to convince people. They take statements from the Bible, sometimes literal, when it talks about the lesser light, as you read a while ago about. That doesn't mean that it has its own light.
Right.
But there are a lot of people that believe the moon has its own light.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you a question. For those that you believe in a flat earth and you believe that the moon has its own light, why is every orbit even the orbits within a molecule. Every entity, even inside an atom, has a circular orbit. Why does it have a circular orbit? And why is it global in its shape? Mm-hmm. And if the Earth was flat when you had a lunar eclipse, you wouldn't see a round corner out. You'd see a square corner out of it. Yep. And so let me ask you another question. How does everything operate in these circles? Because on day number 4, God set them in their orbit. Yep. This is all God ordained. Let me ask you another question. What causes those orbits to align on clockwork? It's amazing. The North Star is in the tail of we call it the Big Dipper. The North Star is the tail of Ursa Major, and as it turns counterclockwise to us on an exact 24-hour, he spins every night on his tail. But if you were in the heaven above, you'd be clockwise. How does all of these things do that if God hadn't designed it to do just that? And let me ask you one more question. While the moon brings total darkness to the sun, why isn't it shining?
Yeah, because it's in front of the sun. How come you can't see the moon?
How come you can't see? If the moon has its own light, then it would close out the darkness of the sunlight and it would be shining. Yeah. Because it doesn't have its own light. It's a reflector of the light.
Now, there's also an alignment of planets, isn't there, on April 8th?
In the right side of that little, the Earth is where the arrow is down there. And at this time, during total eclipse, you'll be able to see you'll be able to see these major planets in an alignment. Yeah. Now, my question is, how could all this happen? And I'd ask the evolutionists, how can all that happen if a God did not design this? And go to the next slide because time's out. I want to make sure we cover this. You got to be careful. And Dan, this is what I see. I do believe there's some significance. Why would there be an X in the road? Why would it be over little? Why would it be all? I think there's something to it. But we have to be very careful not to interpret prophecy just by current events. Yeah. We have to be careful of that. Secondly, you got to beware of those that can easily manufacture by tweaking it. Because the last time they said, well, here's what happened. It went over these Salems. But they cherry-picked and in this line, and now they're saying it's Nineveh, and they got all the Ninevehs like this up there. Folks, when people have to cherry-pick Scripture and cherry-pick facts to prove their narrative, you need to back up and say, wait a minute. And then lastly, the Bible says that it is for the Jews. Signs are for the Jews. So we need to be careful, Dan.
All right. Well, that was fast. I wish we had more time, Doug. That was very exciting. Folks, I think there's, we both think there's something interesting here. We're not sure exactly what. But, hey, keep your eyes on them skies.
Amen.